What if we can positively impact society by reshaping the mindsets of young men? And while we're at it, let me ask you, what does it mean to be a man? My name is Dennis Meralda, a father, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and a principal with over 2 decades of experience shaping the minds and characters of young men across the United States. If these questions resonate, if you're a young man looking to improve your life or a parent looking for tools to help your son become the best version of himself, the Building Men Podcast was created for you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Building Men Podcast, or welcome back if you have been here before. So my guest today is none other than Nico Diaz. Nico is one of the few family members that I've had on the podcast. And you'll see during the conversation, in my experience in education, which is over 25 years, there are just a couple people that stand out as far as just like who they are inherently as a human being. And I will tell you that Nico is one of my favorite people in the world. He not only is he just a badass athlete, he's just one of the most kind, genuine people you'll ever meet. In the beginning, when he was dating my niece Marina, I was thinking, is this real? Like, is he just putting on an act right now, or is this genuinely the person that he is? And after how long, Nico, have you been dating Marina? How long has it been?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. It is 100% legit. He is just one of the most authentically unbelievable human beings I've ever met. I'm excited to have him on the podcast because he's been through it. He's had quite a journey in his years, and I figured having a guy who's about to graduate from college be on the podcast, he could definitely share some insights, some pieces of advice with those of you that are listening that are in high school or just out of high school that might be struggling with a couple things. Or if you're the parent, the coach, the teacher of someone who's in that time frame who might be struggling with things as well. So Nico's a senior at Stevens Institute of Technology. And that's in Jersey City, Nico?
That's in Hoboken.
Hoboken, okay.
Yeah, right next to
Neighbors.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right next to it.
And what are you studying in college right now? What's your major?
It's business and technology with concentrations in finance and information systems. So like more finance, the more
Yeah.
finance route.
So once you graduate, people that are listening to the podcast, hit Nico up. We'll put his contact information if you're looking for someone that can assist you in those capacities. So, Nico, welcome to the podcast, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Uncle Dennis, and I'm just so grateful to be here.
Likewise, I'm glad you're here as well. So, we're gonna go back in time a little bit. We'll start off on more of like a heavy note, if that's cool with you. So,
Of course.
I believe was it your freshman year of high school that you lost your
Yeah.
father? So
Yep.
take us back to that time in your life a little bit. So we'll start there. We'll take us back to your freshman year of high school. Talk about how losing your father connected you to wrestling and how wrestling became a thing that was more of like how you were able to still have your father's impact in your life.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, I was a freshman at St. John Vianney, and that's actually where I met Marina. We went to high school together. And back then I was really young, freshman in high school, about 14 years old. And wrestling was always a part of my life ever since I was in fifth grade. So ever since I was around 10 years old, my dad would take me everywhere. We would go to wrestling camps across the country, go to all these wrestling tournaments, and it was something that we really bonded over. And sometimes he was a little bit more like of my coach than my actual
Mm.
dad, and that wasn't always the best part. But at the same time, he taught me those principles that I feel like resonated with me and carried me through college and through the rest of my life. So when I was a freshman, the wrestling season was very difficult than any other wrestling season before. You're wrestling freshmen versus seniors. I'm wrestling these kids, and I'm not at the level where I thought I would be at coming out of middle school, where I had some success in middle school, but you always think you're gonna be the guy. And
Mm.
I was a starter on varsity, and it was just a very up and down season. Wrestling season in high school is very long. It's from November to March, and you're cutting weight, you're
Yep.
making weight 3 times a week, and
Especially during the holidays too. You got to cut weight during
yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, and yep.
Yeah, there's so many times where, Mrs. Millette would have pictures of me. She's like, "You look so skinny," And I gotta watch my weight at all those holidays, and it was it was really tough. And through that, my dad would still, take me to practice from SJV, then all the way to Milltown. And when I lost him, it was in February, so that was around the postseason. So that was right after districts, getting ready for regional tournament, which is you have to place top three in districts, and then you have to place top four in regions to get to states. And states for me back then, I was a freshman, I was like, wow, like I grew up in middle school going down to
Right.
AC, watching the state tournament. Like that is like my dream. And I remember after my district finals, I was about to win the district title, and I'm winning with like 3 seconds left. I think I'm on top. I have a claw. Kid rolls me to my back, pins me with like 2 seconds
Wow.
left, and I lose the district title. And my dad, because he was so much invested into it, like I was, he was probably more upset than me, if
Mm,
I'm being honest. Like he was really upset. I remember, I mean, I was, backstage, kind of going through it, tears, crying a little bit, and he just came up to me. I remember him saying, "We're gonna get that back.
mm,
We're gonna get that back." One thing we don't do is lose to the same person twice. We learn from our mistakes and we go get after it the next time around. And it really resonates with that. What happens at regions. But then after my district tournament, it was 2 days after districts. Um, my dad had a everybody has their own, has their own demons, and
mm,
my dad had his a little bit. My dad was an alcoholic, but you wouldn't know because of how good of a person he was. And he was always there for me and my sister, and I wouldn't be anywhere without him. So um I was trying to get in touch with him for 2 days, and I was a little bit upset, especially with the whole wrestling thing and stuff like that. And I remember, he picked up a drink, and that's what caused me to like be distant, be away from him. And I remember being like, I don't want to be, near you, this and the third. It was a whole dramatic thing. And I remember vividly, and I just remember him being like calling the fact like you gotta do this, I believe you could be a state champ, like that's why I push you so hard. I still read those text messages till this day.
mm.
And I remember texting him, and he's like, I'm sorry if I'm hard on you. I know what you're capable of, and when you told me your goals, I would do anything to get you to that goal. And I think it was that Tuesday where I was home getting ready to go to school, and I got a phone call from him at like 5 a.m. And he was like, "Hey, like I just want to let you know, like I'm just waking you up to get you for school. I had to leave for work earlier today." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good, thank you." Didn't think anything of it. And then I remember trying to text him all day and he's not responding. I'm just like, maybe he's just mad at me for maybe he's mad at me because I went to my mom's that weekend. I have no idea. So I'm not thinking anything of it. So then I go to practice, and after that practice, I remember my mom coming in, and my dad was supposed to pick me up from practice, but my mom came in, and I remember her, talking to Coach Caravella, and I remember, they were talking, and I just remember the look on his face that he gave me,
Mm.
and I was like, something just went down, something happened. Um, I'm thinking maybe my dad got arrested or something. I don't I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the worst possible thing. I don't know. So I'm like, oh, maybe he got arrested, because in my eyes, my dad was invincible. If you knew him, he was just like one of those luckiest people where like he would get out of
Mm.
everything and also just be like, he was like a big guy, big strong guy. I was like, this guy's invincible. Like if I'm ever in a fight, I'm calling this guy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and then I remember, Coach Carvella giving me a hug, not saying anything, and I'm walking out to the front parking lot of SJV, and I just remember my mom just telling me, because I'm like, where's dad? Where's dad? And my mom just looks at me and starts crying, and she's like, he passed away this morning. He's dead. And I I like life was like not real. I was
Mm.
like, are you serious? Like are you kidding me? Like are you saying like he's in the hospital, he's in critical condition, like we got to go see him? No, he's dead. He passed away this morning. I immediately, fall to the ground in front of SJV. I think I broke my glasses on the floor, and then I think my sister was in the car, and we were just, sobbing. And that plays a heavy role. And I still think about that sometimes till this day. I think about him every single day. And um during that time, I went to the funeral, I went to the wake, and at the same time, I have to get ready for regionals. I have to get ready, you know what I mean? And at my mind, I'm not wrestling. I'm done. How can I wrestle with this?
Right.
I'm not going to be able to perform at my highest level when my coach, my role model, my father passed away. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to do that. And I just remember I called up Coach Gene from CJA. He's still my club coach to this day. That's he's like family, and he was really close to my dad as well. And I just remember him saying like, "What do you think your dad would have wanted you to do?" And I'm like, "Wrestle."
Mm,
He would want me to wrestle. And he's like, "Listen, it's your call. Like, if you're gonna wrestle, you're gonna wrestle. But I just want to let you know that might be something that you regret for the rest of your life if you don't decide to go do that." And I was like, I just remember like at nighttime, I'm just like, I don't know what to do, at all. I don't know. And I wake up the next day and I'm just like, I need to get out of here. You know, my family's here. Everybody's in like a depressed state, obviously. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, I just gotta go wrestle. You know, I think this is gonna be what I need to do. Is gonna be an escape in some
right.
way. So I go to the club, I think like 2 days after, because I got regionals in like 2 days. And I remember I go to the club and my dad used to sit through every single practice, every single private, everything, and just watch me wrestle. Come back home and he would be like, "All right, this is what you did wrong. Like, you
Mm,
got to," and we're still training at home. We're watching film at home.
right.
And I just remember I walked in and he wasn't sitting on that couch. And it was very emotional. I think I was like crying through every drill
Yeah.
set. Um, and I went to compete at regionals where I found myself, qualifying and going to the state tournament. And I actually beat the kid to go to states. I beat the kid who beat me in the
Mm,
district finals. And I ended up like majoring him, like beating him like 12-4. And that was when, I had the community was behind me. Everybody knew what was going on in the wrestling community. And that's where I felt, my dad. And I always still feel him to this day in like the wrestling room. And then I went onto states, and that's when I lost in the blood round, which was really good for a freshman. But, I still wanted to get on the podium, but it was like one win away from being top 8 in the state. But yeah, that's how that all played out.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking us down that journey, Nico. I mean, doesn't like even though time passes, it's still something that I'm sure weighs heavy, and having to relive that, I'm sure is extremely challenging for you as well. So I appreciate you taking us into that and into your world a little bit. I could feel the emotion through the story. I don't want to pry with this, but and if you're not comfortable answering this question, totally understand. But for the audience, they're probably on the edge of their seat right now. Like you mentioned, your father dealt with demons, and alcohol was something that he really struggled with. So, what was the actual cause of his death?
Yeah, so I mean, nobody exactly knows. They just, he had a heart attack, but nobody knows
Mm,
like what it like what was in his system, what caused that. Um, and he was on his way to work apparently, and he stopped on his way to work somewhere, and like he was in the car, stopped, and he just I don't know, he just collapsed.
mm,
And I'm not gonna I try to remember my dad the way I knew him,
yeah.
I don't know what he had in his system, but it was a heart attack, and his body stopped functioning.
Mm.
And yeah.
So, when you look back on that experience where you decided to wrestle, are you happy that that was your decision, or or when do you look back, are you like, I wish I would have taken a little bit more time for myself because you went from a funeral to this really significant competition?
Yeah, I don't regret that at all. I mean, I'm just grateful that I made that decision.
Mm,
I think if I didn't do that, I would have regretted it.
right.
And at the same time, as much as it was an escape for me, I felt as if it was like an escape for all of my family
Yeah.
members as well. At that time, I remember them all coming to my wrestling events, and it was very emotional. I remember when I got my first win at regionals, I just was, bawling my eyes out. I got wrestling parents coming up to me that I knew for a really long time. They all knew my dad, and giving them hugs, and it was really emotional. But uh, looking back on it, I'm so grateful that I made
Yeah.
that decision.
Has the recognition that your father really struggled with alcohol, and recognizing that it's definitely a disease. Has that impacted your relationship with alcohol at all, as far as watching other people that are drinking or being around at parties, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think alcohol is definitely something that people don't watch out for.
Mm,
I remember my dad dealt with it pretty heavily, and I saw what it did to people firsthand. And I still see some people in my family that it affects a deep, affects deeply. And it makes me just not, I mean, worried, yes, but also a little bit more careful, a little bit more careful where, yeah, I think it's okay if I have a drink at celebrating somebody or but maybe going out on the weekends, but I would be lying to you if I said like I'm not, that doesn't scare me, because alcoholism, it runs on
yep.
both sides of my family and it's a real thing. It really, seeing how it affected him, it really, it turns people into a different person. And it's something really scary that I feel like could happen to a lot of people.
So I'm a big believer in when people experience hardships in their life. And one thing that I say when I'm in building men meetings, especially in high school, I tell the boys, I'm like, listen, you're going to experience really, really difficult situations in your life. You're going to experience hardship. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to experience pain in your life. It's what you do in those moments that can really define you. And so I think about you, and it's like finding purpose through your pain. And I would ask you to think about at what point, and it might have been right in that moment, in the regionals and in the state tournament, but at what point did wrestling become more than just a sport to you and turn into something deeper, something tied to your purpose and to your identity?
Yeah, that happened because yeah, so before my dad passed away, at some moments it almost felt as if like I was doing it more for him than for
Mm,
myself. And that sometimes I feel like that's why I wasn't doing as well when he was here. And I always think like if he saw me now, like he'd be so proud and so like proud of the wrestler and the man that I become. But I remember after he passed away, it wasn't even that season. That season was really like the ending happened so fast because of everything that was going on in my personal life. And I just remember for that rest of that season, though, that postseason, I remember wrestling with no fear in sense of like
mm,
I used to be so scared to lose a wrestling match, but I already lost everything. You know what I mean? Like I already lost. So I'm gonna go out there, do my best regardless, but I got no pressure, no nerves because I don't care if I lose a wrestling match. This is real life that I just lost. So that was that. But then I remember my sophomore year um was even harder because that was the first whole season without him being there.
yeah.
And it was like really like ups and downs. And I give so much thanks to my mom because that was not easy that year going through that. But she kept my head straight, so did Coach Jean, and they kept me on that path. And there was times where I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up. I just felt like it was more sad than good, where I,
Mm,
I would just like it just reminds me too much of him. And I would say my junior year when I met Marina, or not met because we were always friends, but when I started dating Marina, I think that's when my pain kind of turned into I wasn't as angry anymore because Marina completed me and she still does to this day, but it was that like that grounding that she gave me that gave me the ability to look at wrestling as something that's like no, like this is not something, yeah, it's sad, but at the same time, like you actually love wrestling. Like me personally, like I love wrestling. And at the same time, like, let me go finish this story. And I remember my mom just said this. She was like, you could do whatever you want after high school, like whether you want to wrestle in college or not,
mm,
but finish the chapter that your dad started with you. Finish this chapter. And
love
I
that.
think that's when I made the decision, like, all right, you're right. Like, I'm gonna put my best foot forward and I'm gonna go finish what we started.
Mm, love that. And just a quick shout out to
Yeah,
Marina Millette. Just again, you, the couple that you two are, you're uh, just to be around the two of you. It just you guys light up a room together. She is a stellar human being as well.
you're the
Definitely one of
best.
my favorite people. So I love you as a couple, and um, you know, obviously being around Marina her entire life, like you definitely bring out something in her, and then also that whole family. So you
Yeah.
you mentioned Mrs. Millette, that's my sister Tara, right?
Yeah.
It's Jimmy and Tara. It's Cameron, Marina, and Genevieve, her three daughters. But just seeing you around them, it just you complete that family. You definitely bring something into that family as well. So quick call back to you talking about your father with how he was as you said he was more of a coach sometimes than a father to you. So
Yeah.
I grew up in a situation, and you met my father before he bailed on the family.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of pain in my memories about growing up with him. He coached many of my sports, starting in fourth and fifth grade, all the way through probably until I was a freshman in high school. And it was a lot of pain in those memories. And I did well athletically, and I just remember if I didn't live up to what his expectations were, it was always a bad feeling that was associated with this, like mental, emotional abuse that came along with me not living up to what his expectations were. So I was always nervous competing, especially if I didn't do well. And I would always look over to see how is he looking at me right now. And it was always if I struck out a couple times or if I, threw an interception or whatever the thing was, I could see his love for me diminish because of how I didn't perform up to his expectations. So having said that about your dad being more of a coach than a dad in some capacities with you, should you have kids one day and you're coaching your own kids, how would you act with them? How would your experience inform you as a parent or as a coach in the future?
Yeah, of course. I'm sure you probably made changes the way that you parented Denny through, because I know he was a quarterback in high school. And yeah, I look back on that and just like you said, I mean, I wouldn't say like no, but yeah, it's like kind of what you said. Like you're so nervous all the time that you're not gonna perform well. And then at the same time, then you're like thinking to yourself, you're like, oh, but then I gotta get in the car ride
Yeah.
home, and it's gonna be a long car ride home. It's gonna be a long car ride home. And at the end of the day, I knew my dad it didn't come from a place of like it didn't come from a place of like not loving me. It just came from a place where like he just wanted me to do better. But at the time, you're just a young kid, you don't know any better, and you're like, bro, like I'm trying my best. Like, what do you
Yes.
like? What do
Yeah.
you want from me? Like, I'm trying. Like, you see me putting the work in. Like, I'm trying. I'm just, I get nervous whenever you're watching me compete, and I'm scared I'm gonna take a loss, and then I'm not gonna, you're gonna be mad at me that I lost. And looking back on that, I think if I when it comes to that point where I have kids and they're in sports, because they're definitely gonna be in sports. Nah, they can do whatever they decide they're passionate about. But I just want to make sure that I'm not like I want to be a coach, but at the same time, I'm a father first.
Mm,
I'm a father first, and I just want to be an outlet. I want to be an outlet, a source of information for them, but I don't want to overbear them.
mm.
And whatever sport they choose, you have a coach. That's your coach. I'm just a source of information if you need advice, and where I think, mentally maybe, or maybe if I see you're not putting the work in, but you want a certain goal, then I'll have a talk and be like, if you want this goal, you have to put the work in. But I don't want to be a source of like, you have to do this, you have to do this, or I want to be mad at you. I want to love you regardless of that outcome, because once again, sports are sports, and like life is life.
Yeah.
It's completely different. And sports are meant to shape people for life, in my opinion. So I would just try to be a source of
Our
information.
young men are struggling. We see a lack of positive male role models. And in school, we're dealing with truancy, we're dealing with failing grades, behavioral issues, we're dealing with isolation, aggression. Students post-high school, we're dealing with an alarming suicide rate, we're dealing with poverty, we're dealing with incarceration. As a society, we recognize we have a problem. We've tried everything with limited to no success at all. So what's the answer? It's a foundational mentoring program. It's building men.
They really do like show you a better way and a better path. Doing the right things when people aren't even looking, it shows a lot, and it shows who you are as a person.
Building men means a lot to me because it's somewhere where I can go and open up and talk about things that I don't talk to other people about. It taught me that like talking is something, it's natural, it's something you're supposed to do, talking about your feelings.
Also giving me the guidance that not a lot of other kids have gotten, and it's also showed me how to become more of a leader, since now I'm representing something, now I'm in a group.
Once a month, young men in the Building Men program come together for a full day experience.
an opportunity to connect, grow, and challenge themselves. These meetings go beyond the classroom, creating a space where they can share their wins and struggles, build brotherhood, and develop the leadership skills needed for success.
Building men means to me is the steps in order for a boy to become a man. You have to go through adversity, hardships, challenges, everything in order to become a man.
I love how when I go there, I'm held accountable. If I say I want to start doing something one meeting, I either have to have it done or shown that I'm taking steps by the next meeting. It's a great program. A lot of kids should do more stuff like this because a lot of, especially boys and men don't have nobody they can talk to or they feel they can talk to. So having a closed, safe space feels great.
It impacted my mindset a lot. It helped me focus on my schoolwork more. It helped me communicate more to other people.
You know, he tells us real stories about his life, and that kind of touched me as a person because the same stuff that he's going through, I'm going through. And you know, I was going through a difficult time, and we were both going through a difficult time. So him speaking out about it made me realize it's okay to speak out about my struggles as well.
A place where you could be your authentic self and feel like you won't be judged for it. A place that we've created a culture, an edifying culture for our young boys to level up and mature as young boys in this world.
Through hands-on activities and meaningful discussions, young men engage with 12 character pillars, from accountability and authenticity to resilience and self-discipline, building a foundation for lifelong leadership.
I got to meet the founder, Dennis, and you know, he just seemed like a down-to-earth, cool person. He seemed like he knew us. He seemed like he knew what we were going through without us telling him what we were going through.
They have become a small community in itself that probably would never have happened if it wasn't for this program. If it wasn't for the Building Men program, I feel like I would not be at the level that I'm at right now in my life. Building Men has definitely changed my life. It has made me a better person, a better friend, a better son, a better counselor, a better mentor.
Overall, it's just been a great experience, and I look forward to it growing to bigger and better things.
That I feel this interconnected with like the staff, not only the male staff, but like everyone, and the kids. I'm able to feel much more connected than I ever thought I would be as an intern.
This is more than a program. This is a movement. It's about shaping strong, resilient leaders who will impact their schools, communities, and beyond. That's what Building Men is all about. Let's build the next generation of men who will lead, serve, and change the world.
One thing that I've done, and I definitely took the way my father was with me as I was growing up, and I decided I will not be X, Y, and Z. I will not do these things. And for the most part, I've lived up to those promises that I made to myself to not be like him in those ways. I know I've slipped from time to time, without a doubt, as we all do. A couple things that I've instituted with my kids is the car ride home. Good, bad, or ugly. And it was really difficult for me at times to not be like, here's what you did wrong, blah, 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 and like get into that. So what I decided to tell them was, listen, after the game is over, I'm not going to talk to you about the game at all. I'll say, hey, that was a lot of fun. You know, we'll talk about your favorite music. We'll talk about what's coming up the next week. I will not bring up anything about the game on the ride home, especially if you took an L or you didn't perform up to your ability. Because at that time, I know as an athlete myself, I was so self-critical. And hearing from my father the things that I did wrong as well compounded that feeling without a doubt. And there was definitely shame that I felt along with it. So I tell my kids, we could talk about it tomorrow unless you want to talk about it right now. And if you want to talk about it, bring it up, and I'd be happy to give you some feedback, but I'm going to give you that space. So that's something that I did with my kids. The other thing that I started to do, and I definitely didn't do this with Denny. I started with Jules and then now with Soph. Anything that I will praise them for with sports has nothing to do with the outcome, has everything to do with the effort that they put in. Because here's the thing, there are going to be times that you don't make the shot. You don't, get the hit. You don't pin the kid. You don't do the thing. What I want them to know is the way that you can control the outcome is by controlling your effort. And you could always put in the effort. So what I started to do is, say Jules hits a home run in a game. I wouldn't say, oh, you're the best softball player because you hit a home run. I would say, hey, I'm really proud of the effort that you put in. Or next level, you should be really proud of the effort that you put in. You got the result that you want because you were really dedicated to the process. Yep. Because here's the thing, you can always work hard.
You're not always going to get the end result, but you can always work hard. And that's something that's transferable to life. There are going to be times that you're not successful in the ultimate outcome, but you can continue to get up and work hard and work hard and work hard. And that's something that if you develop that sense at a younger age, it's going to set you up for success in life. So I think back to the adversity that you went through, and now you're at a low point in your freshman year, not only, with sports because your father was a big connection to it, but also in life. So what did the adversity that you went through teach you about your own resilience?
Yeah, I think, and that's awesome, and I'm definitely gonna take that advice for when I do have kids because I think that's great. Like not bring up the game, I think that's awesome. Because once again, as an athlete, like me and you, we're probably similar, where I'm just like thinking about that match all
Yeah.
night, all day, all week. So I think that's great. But I think the adversity that adversity that taught me that resilience. My fault, Uncle Dennis. Can you ask me that question one more time?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking about is you went through a ton of adversity your freshman year of high school, right?
Yeah.
Like not only like athletically, because now you're at the spot where you lose in the district finals, you could have won, that there's the connection with your father, but also in life. For a young man to lose his father while he's in high school, like that's one of the most difficult, traumatic things that will ever happen. So you decided to keep going. You decided, and your mom told you, like, this chapter is not over. That had to like uncover a lot about who you are as a human being. So what did it teach you about your own level of perseverance and resilience by going through that?
Yeah, it taught me that nothing, especially with wrestling, and I mean even in school, but it just taught me that, I mean, it sounds like cliche, but um my dad actually gave me a Rocky poster, and it's the, I forget which Rocky it is, but it's the one where he's talking to his son and is like, life isn't sunshine and rainbows. You're gonna keep getting hit, and life is gonna keep hitting you until you stay on the floor, you can't take it anymore. And um, I really just feel like that's so true. And regardless what happens to you in your life, you gotta get back up and keep going. I think it just taught me that no matter what, even in school, I could get a bad grade on a test, and I'm looking towards the next one. Like that happened already, and I think that's also a huge thing as well, is staying in the moment. And it's okay to reflect on the past, but you can't let the past control your future. I think if you let the past control your future, it's going to be a very hard road ahead of you. I think staying in the moment and being grateful for the people that you do have is really what carried me through. And that taught me also to be grateful for the people in my life. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, especially when I like reflect and think back to my mindset in that time. When I was a freshman, I took everything for granted. Especially when he was here, I took everything for granted. I took it for granted
Mhm.
that he was driving me to this practice. The money that was spent on wrestling, I didn't understand those concepts until I saw my mom do it, and until he passed away, and I didn't have that anymore. And I took that for granted, where he used to sit and watch my practices and give me feedback, and we might get into an argument. Like I miss those. I miss those arguments. If it sounds crazy, but I took everything for granted. So I think being grounded and being grateful for the people that you do have is what taught me, and definitely what kept me going forward.
Mm. I love that. And one of the things I'll end building men meetings with in schools is just an expression of gratitude for something or someone. And I tell the boys all the time, and I unfortunately in my life, like the true realization of the impact of this came later on. I mean, I'm grateful that I never lost anyone close to me as when I was your age, obviously. But losing my brother really
Mm.
helped me recognize just the fragility of life and how, like, in a second it could be something different, right? And you said your dad called you that morning knowing that that was the last conversation you were going to ever have with him. I'm sure you probably look back and think, I wish I would have said these couple things to him, right? So I tell
Yeah.
the boys all the time, like, hey, if there's someone that's in your life right now, make sure that you're expressing to them how grateful you are to be a part of their life. Tell them how much you love them. Put the phone down and be present in those conversations as well. So I think for you as well, Nico, while losing your father was one of the most challenging things anyone could ever experience,
I think that you were able to take that and use it as a motivator rather than something, because you could have stayed stuck in that and you could have just been like, you know what, I don't care, I'm giving up. And no one would have really faulted you from that. But you decided, I'm going to persevere and push on. And I think the more that you do that, the more that you develop the muscle in your brain and in your heart that I'm the type of person that can do these things, because we're all going to fail in life. And
Mhm.
I think failing is something that we could use as a detractor, as a motivator, right? You could like you see failure as that's a learning experience. I failed at this. Let me try to recalibrate and figure it out. What did I do? What can I do differently in the future? So I
Mhm.
try to look at failure as that's an opportunity to adjust for something moving forward. So I also I don't want to shortchange your high school career because you had a really great, high school career with wrestling. But then you decided in college that wrestling was going to be a part of your life, and you were very successful for during your freshman and your sophomore year. And then in your junior year, you suffered multiple concussions. And I can still remember having conversations with you where it was almost like I saw this like identity shift, because wrestling was like Nico Diaz and wrestling were synonymous. Like that's just who you were. And many guys that I talked to on the podcast, that their identity was connected to something, to an especially an athletic thing, and it's taken away from them. It's
Mhm.
almost like you're like, who am I now? Like who am I as a human being if I'm not connected to this sport? So you suffered multiple concussions and you thought, okay, I'm done. Like you were on the shelf your entire junior year. So what was going through your mind when you lost wrestling for your junior year? And then as a secondary question, like who were you without wrestling?
Yeah. Yeah, that was also like when I look back on that, like I felt defeated during that time.
Mm,
I felt lost. I remember I was working at at TO's as a server, and I just remember there'd be so many times, especially during that season, where I'm like sweeping under tables and all I'm thinking about is wrestling, and I'm like, this is terrible. Like this is terrible. I miss it. And even I'm going to school and I see my teammates in class
mm.
and they're like, "Yeah, we just had, this competition this weekend and yeah, man, we miss you." And I remember even like the coach Bond, and they're like family. They always gave me the opportunity to get into the room and just try to be there for the guys and coach them, but it was just something I really couldn't do. Like I remember going into the room trying to coach them and or sitting on the sideline and watching a duel meet, and I'm just not, and it sounds crazy, but I'm just not a sideline guy. Like obviously I'm love supporting my teammates, but I'm just sitting there. And it would make me more sad and more depressed watching it and being like, I used to do that. Like I see myself being out there. Like I still have so much left in me, and I just remember getting like my fifth or sixth concussion and it being like a really bad one and a really scary feeling. And I just remember going to a bunch of doctors and they're all like, yeah, you gotta hang it up. This is if you wanna, or yeah, they kept saying like if you suffer another bad one, like you're increasing the chances of having CTE later on in life, and you know, just scary stuff, honestly, just really scary stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, I have to stop, I guess. And who I was without wrestling, I give so much gratefulness to Marina
Mm.
and your family and my family. Like without you guys, I would truly be nowhere. It takes a village. And I remember I just, there'd be times where I'd be talking to Marina like late at night and being like, I really want to go back. Like
Mm.
I really miss it. And she was always supportive of whatever decision I made. And obviously she's worried about my health first. And without wrestling, I would just say that I try to be a family man in the sense of like I try to be there for everybody.
And the other thing that happened, it was like Anthony passed away at the end of September, and
Hmm.
then it was a couple months later, right, when you had the when
Yeah,
you were done with wrestling. So talk about traumatic experiences, right? There's so much tied with wrestling with you in connection with your dad, but also you had a really good relationship with Anthony as well.
of
So
course.
I don't even know the best way to phrase this question. I'm just thinking about how that how losing Anthony how that factored into your decision eventually And maybe it did, and maybe it didn't to get back into wrestling for your senior year. Did that have anything to do with it? And how do you remember anything that he spoke to you about with wrestling as well? I was never privy to the conversations that you had with him about wrestling. So was there any piece of advice that he gave you that ultimately informed your decision to get back into it?
Yeah, no. Anthony was a source of light whenever he came around, always. And he was always one of the funniest people, like the guy you always wanted to be standing next to at a social gathering. And I'm wearing the Stay in the Fight shirt right now as we speak. And I remember there's so many times where I was going through certain things, and I remember he would always like talk me down that ledge. And he was always there for not just me, but for all of us. And I remember even like the workouts, like the strength workouts our strength coaches would give us,
Yeah,
Anthony, and be like, "Is this real? Like, is
right.
can you check this for me?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, like that's a really good workout." And then now I'd be like, "All right, it's Anthony approved. I could go do it." So it was things where I always, I with the workouts and stuff like that, I would always, check in with him. And I just remember him always being there for me where I could talk to him about anything in life, whether that's wrestling, lifting, family stuff. And I remember going back when I made the decision to go back into wrestling. I just I just thought of how strong he was. Um, I know the motto is stay in the fight, but that's a truly testament of what Anthony always did was staying in that fight. And I always just when I made the decision to go back, I just thought like he he dealt with things that he dealt with on a personal level, and he always was still there for everybody that he loved when it was really hard to be
Mm.
sometimes. And it just shows that, life will not be easy, as we've been talking about this for the pretty much like, the whole podcast, but it's something that I can't be scared to do.
Mm.
And I think Anthony always overcome his fears, whether you see him do crazy stuff like jumping in the ocean, going into ice baths. You'd see him do like the most crazy things that like, I would even be scared to do. And it's just that motto of staying in the fight and just having the clear mindset of, like what is there really to be scared of,
Mm.
you know?
One of
And
his famous lines, Nico, was he would say, "Feel the fear and do it anyway,"
mm,
which I love that. It always, if there were those decision points in my life where I was on the fence about something, that would come back into my mind. Like hearing his voice saying that. So I think about that decision you had to make going into your senior season, right? You have getting ready in that year to graduate, knowing the grind of the wrestling season, right? It's not just from, November through March. Like it is so much more before that, getting yourself into like battle ready shape to be able to perform at that level. People are telling you you shouldn't be doing this. Like, hey, listen, the doctors are saying this could impact your health long term. So walk us through a little bit the little angel, the little devil on your shoulders about like, yes, I should do this. No, I shouldn't do this. I might regret it, but what about that? Like, what was going on mentally, internally with that struggle you were going through?
yeah, yeah. And this is coming off of a year off trying to do
Yeah.
it at a collegiate level, which it's not easy no matter the division. And I just remember I was like, I think it was August, and I really missed it. And my one of my teammates, Ryan Smith, he had a really big impact on this as well, where um he would always just joke around whenever I would see him and be like, "Yo, you're coming back, right? Like you're coming back. Like you beat the national champ last year. Like you could do it. Like you could come back and still be that guy." And always, I mean, even when I saw his dad, he would say the same thing. And I just remember after one day of hanging out with him, I was just like, I would really love to go back. Like it would be my last time I ever get to do it,
Yeah.
my last opportunity. But then at the same time, the devil's on my shoulder saying like, what if you get hurt again? Or um, if you get one more concussion, you have to be done. Or do you even still have it? Do you even
Mm.
still got what it takes? Like, are you still gonna be able to compete at that level after taking a whole year off? Like these guys are ahead of you. And there's a lot of doubt in my mind at that time, a lot of doubt. And I was like, all right, well, there's gonna be doubt, and I have to be able to at least try. At least try. I need to be able to tell myself that I left no regrets, and at least I tried it. And I was scared, and I decided to go back, and it was September, getting ready for preseason, get my body in shape. I was not in shape at all. I think I came in at like 162 and I wrestled at like 141. So I was not in shape at all. And I think when I knew that I think a huge confidence booster was like, I think the second competition of the season, this past season, I wrestled this kid named Kaishan Grace, and he was a Division II NCAA finalist. And I beat him. It was a dog fight, but I beat him like 4-1 or like 4-3. And I think after that match, that was when I was like, I still got it. I still got it. I still got it. And then also just being grateful for the opportunity just to be back out on that mat again, is I feel like what really took me further.
Love that. And the little angel and little devil on our shoulders, we have them. We all have them. And unfortunately, the way our minds work typically is the little devil is a little bit bigger and it speaks a little bit louder. It's real easy to turn to the little devil and say, "Oh, well, what if the bad stuff happens?" But I think what you did also, Nico, is you're like, "Okay, well, what if the good stuff happens? Like, what if that good stuff happens?" And you mentioned regret. It's one of the things that it's not the decisions that people make when they're on their deathbed and they look back at their life. It's not they don't regret the things that they did. Typically, they regret the things that they didn't do, that they left on the table. And so you got the most out of the experience. You're like, you know what? There might be some things that happen that are concerning, but there might be some great things that happen as well. And the latter is true. Great things happen during your senior season. I think you were 27-1 during the regular season, something along those lines. And I remember going and watching you wrestle, and it was just so cool to watch it. I was just filled with so much pride watching you get back on the mat after everything that you've been through in your life. And not only did you get through that point, like you qualify for nationals, you go out to Iowa to wrestle in nationals, and I wasn't able to be there. I was actually down in Florida, watching on my computer every single match that you were wrestling. And even though you didn't win the national championship, you were on the podium. You finished fourth in the country out of thousands and thousands and thousands of wrestlers at your weight class. So for me, watching you do that was just such an unbelievable experience to you. So I would ask you to think about this then. When you were told by the doctors, maybe not a good idea, CTE in your future, you had the little devil on your shoulder and you mentioned like, okay, I don't want to have the regret. Was there something that like changed in you, either mentally, physically, or emotionally, that allowed you to get back on the mat, having the cut weight and not knowing like, do I still have it? What if was there some moment, was there some piece of advice that you got that like this switch went on? And you mentioned beating that kid. Was that the moment like, okay, everything changed? Or did you have to pep talk yourself up into the spot where you were even able to listen to the little angel on your shoulder?
Yeah. I think that match that I brought up, I think that was when like where I was like, all right, yeah, I still got it. But even to get to that point, even to get back into it, and I deal, and I'm sure a lot of people deal with this, but I have a big problem with like overthinking.
Mm.
And that's something that me and Anthony even talked about a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes.
And overthinking could, take me down a spiral where it's like so like you don't even need to go down that path, and it will take you down that path. And I really feel like getting and I used to be like, oh, if I lose, like, if I go back and I'm not the same, then, this person's gonna say that and that person's gonna say this. And it just got to a point though, and I was like, F that noise. Like
Mm.
it's all noise. It's all noise. It's like not even real. It's like something that like I'm making it up myself. And I just remember, getting even closer to God and getting in my faith as well. And I think that also had a huge part to do with it, whereas like I'm gonna surrender to this plan. I'm gonna put my foot forward, and whatever happens was meant to be, and that's what God wanted it to be. I think that's what helped me eliminate some overthinking things as well, where it'd be like, no, like, God got me. No matter what happens, I know God got my back, and he's gonna carry me through the fire regardless. So I feel like getting closer in my faith and realizing and noticing those patterns with like in my own head of like this is where I do like you like catch a thought sometimes where you're thinking you're like
Yeah.
nope, I caught it, like
Yeah.
that's the overthinking part, like I gotta let that go. So I think that's what helped me a lot.
So there's a couple things there, Nico. There was a guy that Anthony and I interviewed. His name is Akshay Nanavate, one of the coolest dudes I've ever met, one of the most savage human beings. But he would say, I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. I am not my experiences. I'm the thinker of my thoughts. I'm the feeler of my feelings, and I'm the experiencer of my experiences. And Anthony was very good at recognizing that you can't outthink thinking by thinking about it, right? Like you can't beat the
Yeah.
thought process by thinking more about it. So whenever I get into a conversation, especially with a young man about that, when the overthinking is part of what they're doing, I talk to them a little bit about like what actually happens in our brains, right? And we've trained ourselves to think in a certain thought pattern. And the way I analogize it to them is this: say you get 2 feet of snow, and this winter in Jersey, we had a ton of snow. There was a lot of
Yep.
days outside shoveling snow, right? I'm sure you were at the Millette's house. They have a long driveway
I was
outside,
shoveling.
right? I knew you would be shoveling there. So, but what you would walk outside and you would shovel a path from the front door down the sidewalk, down the driveway to the mailbox, say. And now that path is there. The next time that you have to go out, say, my sister asks you, hey, Nico, can you go out and grab the mail for us? You're not going to walk out the door and walk through the grass, walk through 2 feet of snow to get there. You're going to walk on the path that's already been shoveled for you. What happens in our brain is we're so used to overthinking things and we're so used to things being a certain way. The path is already there. It takes a lot of work to decide I'm going to shovel this new path. I'm going to create a new neural pathway from where I am to the mailbox. But that's what you were able to do, Nico. And it's not an easy thing. It takes a lot of intentional effort to get to that point because your brain is saying, no, 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 walk down the path that's already been shoveled. That's the easy thing. That's what we know. And you did the opposite. So whether as you were going through adversity, things didn't go your way. You've had a ton of struggles in your life. Was there any mantra that you used? Was there anything that you're like, I'm going to grab onto this? And it might have been your faith, like you mentioned, but was there something that you reminded yourself to keep going when things got difficult?
Yeah. And and I remember my one loss before going into the postseason was to the returning national champ. And I beat him once before, but he beat me bad. He beat me. I think he beat me like I think it was like 15-3, 15-4. I haven't never like not never, but like it was a long time since I ever got beat like that
Mm.
bad. And I remember even coming home. My mom was like, I haven't seen you get your butt beat like that in a long
Thanks,
time.
Ma. Right.
And I was like, what? Like that's the first thing you're gonna say to me? Like what? And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me, right? So
And that's what your dad would have said too, I'm sure.
yeah, I mean, nah, it would have been way worse. It would have been
Right.
way worse, way worse. Um, but I think just the not overthinking part and just really just staying in the moment, kind of like the path thing they were talking about. Even like, you know, it's easier to go down that path that we already know, but let me stay in the moment building this new path. You know what I mean? Like it's so much easier to go back to the old habits, but let me just stay grounded and stay focused. And I think the biggest part was having fun and no expectations. I talked to one of my we have a mentality coach at
Okay.
Stevens. Her name is Erin Song, and she I remember having a meeting with her in the beginning of the season, and she was just saying like, I want expectations this season. I feel like in the past, like you've gotten in your own head because you have so much like expectations for this person has expectations of you and this person like just let it all go and just have fun. And I think that's really what helped me get through the season where it's like all right, even if I lose, like I'm just so like grateful to be wrestling again, and I'm just having so much fun with the process, not even the
Mm,
outcomes. Like I think if you focus on the outcomes, like all right, I want to win, I want to lose, like that is when you're not going to perform. But if I'm focused on the process and I love the journey and I love these practices and I wake up every day and I'm in the car driving to Stevens at like 5 a.m. screaming like national champ, like going to practice, like I think that is what holds more value.
Love that. I was going to ask the question as far as what advice would you give to a young man who is struggling with that, and that's a perfect piece of advice to think more about the process than the product, and to enjoy the experience. Right? We're given, today is the present because it's a gift. You can think about the past, you can think about the future, but if you're alive in that moment and you're truly like one of the things that me and Anthony talked about was the phrase carpe diem, seize the day, right? You're taking that moment and you're like, this is something that I could make the most out of. And I definitely believe that by you being there and showing up again, not only did it inspire the others, on your team, but anybody that was watching you that knew the journey that you had gone through must have been inspired by just who you are as a human being. I think back to Nico, one of the things that I do as I'm working in schools is I like to think about what are the lessons that the boys are learning and what are lessons that they really need to learn, that's not currently part of like a high school curriculum. So if you can design, a class, a program, like if you can go back to like a high school experience, you're like, boys really need this. This is the thing that they really need to be successful post high school. What would be a couple things you're like, yeah, I wish I learned this, or these are some things that young men need to know?
Yeah, I wish if I was to, go back and reflect on where I was and wish like what I wished I knew, especially now where I'm at currently, is like a maybe like a mentality class where it really focuses on like the mentality of not just athletes but all guys, and knowing that like it's okay to overthink, because I think a lot of guys have this problem, especially like people who want to be successful. And as a guy, like I want to be able to support for my family when
Mhm.
I'm older, and I want to have this job where, I'm making X, Y, and Z, and I want to be able to do so many things. But just to know and say like focus on the present, focus where you're at, stay grounded, and enjoy the process where you're at now. Like when I was younger, I always wanted to get older. I always wanted to be like, oh, well, when I'm in college, like I'm gonna do this. And when I get my license, I'm gonna do this.
Yep.
And now I'm looking back, I'm like, you didn't know how good you had it back then. You don't, even through all the adversity, even through all the trauma, like you still don't know how good you had it back then, you know? So I would say, really just be grateful for the present moment where you're at, and, enjoy that. Enjoy that
Mm.
moment that you have there, because it's not going to be there forever. Time keeps going.
I totally agree with that. And just having a spot to be able to do that. One of the reasons I do what I do is I needed this when I was a young man. Like I needed somewhere where I could be like, I'm struggling with this. Is there someone that can help me? I didn't have that role model, that male role model in my life that would help me overcome the challenges. So I also think having a space where young men can talk about the struggles that they're going through. You mentioned like a lot of us do this, but we say, I'm all right. I got it. I'm fine. Everything is good. Julie and I had a conversation last night about it. She's like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." When I wasn't. And
Mm.
then this morning she's like, "Were you really?" And I'm like, "No, like this is what I was struggling with." And she's like, "Well, why didn't you just talk to me about this thing?" And it's not weakness in admitting that you're struggling with something. I think it takes a lot of strength to share a level of vulnerability rather than drowning yourself in alcohol, or it's something that externally becomes an aggressive thing, or we internalize it, we stuff it down, and that usually festers. It's like shaking up a soda bottle, right? It's going to go somewhere, that explosion. So is there a way that we can slowly let out the tss, and then open a little bit more, tss, open a little bit more, so this way it doesn't explode? And I think you've always been really good at doing that as well, Nico. Since I've met you, you've been very um, open book. Like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. So I think you found ways to be able to do that. And with all the adversity that you've gone through, you've always maintained a positive attitude, not toxic positivity where, as you're on fire saying, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. No, like, but you've maintained a level of like this grounding force with our family, especially when we lost Anthony. You were definitely, for me from afar, I was able to see how you showed up for my sister and her family and Marina, and how that really impacted them. What having, not that your experience losing your father, like it, I don't know if you drew on that, but you just were this. I've been through something similar. It's not an easy thing, but I'm also here to support you. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to you for the way that you handled those situations.
Thank you.
So Nico, talk to us. What's the next chapter in your life going to look like?
Yeah, so the next chapter, I'm graduating from Stevens in a month, and I'm gonna be working at Merck in their finance leadership development program, and I'm gonna be also coaching at CJA, the wrestling club, on Tuesday nights starting in May. So I'm still gonna keep wrestling in my life, and yeah, that's the next plan, and also just continue being there for you and your family, and my family as well. And it feels like we're all family at this
Yeah.
point, but just keep continue being that same person, and never changing, never wavering, and I know with Anthony, like that will never be easy. That will never, it's hard to even say like that's gonna get easier, because that's something that is gonna stick for the rest of our lives, and your life. And um I just remember when everything happened. uh Obviously it was like they're two different people, my dad and Anthony, but the suddenness of it, and like out of nowhere they both passed away. That was something that I felt before, and I remember getting that phone call, and that same feeling of my heart dropping to my
Mm.
stomach. And I just knew I didn't have to. I didn't want to say anything. I just wanted to make sure I was there, and be present and be there for, even if it was just standing alongside you.
Yeah.
That's all that people need sometimes through those times. So
And one of the things that you really like embodied, I've recognized about grief. I heard from so many people after Anthony died. It's like, let me know what I can do for you. Right. And it's something that I've definitely said in the past, but as I'm in the moment, like, I don't know. I don't know what you can do for me. Now it's almost like by asking people that, you're putting the burden on them to think about something that you can do to make them feel better. It's just do the thing. Show up, just be there. Like you said, stand shoulder to shoulder with someone. Put your arm around them. You don't say what can I do? Just do something. Just do something, send a dinner to them, put your arm around them, just for people to understand and know that is a really impactful thing. Before
yeah.
Nico, you mentioned the Stay in the Fight charity that we started. And just the name of the charity is so impactful for me, especially through this conversation. So when you heard, okay, this is the name of the charity that we started for Anthony, what does Staying the Fight mean to you personally?
Yeah, staying in the fight means to me that, what we talked about before was like life is gonna throw curveballs at you. You're gonna face through adversity, and you're gonna feel like you got nothing left in the tank. You're gonna feel like it's really hard to get back up and do what you have to do. But I think staying in the fight means exactly what that is, where it's like no matter how many times you get knocked down, stay in that fight, in life, and in school and wrestling, and anything that you do in life. I think it's important to stay in that fight. And I actually wore the shirt, all nationals. Like if I wasn't wearing Stevens gear, I was wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
And I even have it on my keys, and I'm putting up the posters at school. I'm hoping people notice it. And even my wrestling friends, like they loved it. My,
Mm.
my my wrestling teammates, they saw me wear the shirt. They're like, "Wow, I love that," especially when I tell them about what it means to me. So that's what it means to me, is just like being able to stay in it, even when times get hard.
Love that. Anthony would love that as well. Last question I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to have a request for you. You're allowed to deny the request. I'm going to put it out there for you, though. But the last question I always ask in the podcast is if someone's listening to your story, Nico, and I don't think I even did it justice telling the audience in the beginning just how much of an unbelievable human being you are, right? And you gave a ton of knowledge and wisdom in the last hour or so on the podcast. And someone's listening right now, and they press stop, and they can only do one thing. There's one thing that they can do, but this one thing can really change their life. It could be anything at all, right, Nico? So what's one thing someone could do right now?
Um, I think one thing that someone could do right now would be stay where you are, be present.
Hmm.
And I know, yeah, there's probably been people that said that before, but in the sense of whatever you're going through, in life, it could be really hard. And I think it's important to be present and don't let the past dictate your future. I think I said that before, but that's something that affected me when I was, in high school. I went through a certain period throughout my time in high school where uh, I was letting my past, especially with my dad, like control my actions, and that anger control what I was doing in life. And I had to really turn around and be like, this is not who I am. Don't let that past control what I'm doing in the future. So just be present, stay where your feet are, and stay in the fight.
Love that. Um, it's interesting, Nico. One of the things that you talked about with Anthony was one of the funniest dudes, right? He really was. And Anthony could do accents. He would do a guy from Boston. He would do a guy from
Yeah.
Philly. He would do a woman from Wisconsin named Margie. And he would get into these things where he would just have people rolling. And you mentioned one of the places you would post up at a social gathering was next to Anthony because
Yeah.
he would have you in tears inevitably. He could balance having a deep conversation about the meaning of life and quantum physics and then talk about sports, and then he would turn into a character and you would have pains in your stomach from laughing so hard.
Yeah.
When we were on the podcast together, one thing that he told me is he would say he hated it, but he said throw things out to me to keep me on my toes that would get me a little bit anxious, but I would still do it. So I'd say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to read the outro to the podcast, but do it in a South Philly accent, or do it like a dude from Scotland, or whatever the thing is. So because Anthony was such a big part of both of our lives, I'm going to ask you, Nico, with this is putting you out there a little bit. Currently, whenever there's a social gathering and you are there, usually it happens around 10 to 11 o'clock. All of a sudden, Nico becomes this like freestyle rapper. And you take a thought, a process, and you start rapping about it. And everyone is just in awe. And they're just like, how did that happen? Now, you did not know I was going to ask you to do this. So, Building Men is the name of the podcast. Can you, for 30 seconds, a minute, do a quick rap, a quick riff about building men?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you need to be a beat in the background or you could just go
Oh
with it.
man. I mean, I can try my best. I don't know if it's gonna be that good.
It's gonna be great, Nico.
Um, okay, all right. All right. All right. Here I am, chilling with the fam. Dennis, you know that he is the man. Building man like skillfully. You know what we do, truthfully, and that's what we do. We do it for the generation. No more playing like PlayStation. No more waiting. We got it. This is dedication. Now get up. Now here's your motivation. That's how.
Love it, man. Dude, I absolutely love you, Nico.
I love you too. I hope that was all right.
That was amazing. Dude, you had no time to prepare for it. I just threw that out there to you.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. I love that you brought in PlayStation to that. So before we wrap up, I'm going to take a moment to thank our sponsors who've continued to support the Building Men mission and help us impact more young men through what we do. First is Finish the Race Apparel. You can check them out at ftrapparel.com. They're more than just a clothing brand. They represent discipline, perseverance, and finishing what you start. We appreciate their continued support. Next is Become Stronger Industries. They makers of handmade hammers, steel maces, and some other badass equipment. Their products are built with purpose and toughness, just like the men we are trying to develop. You can find them at become-stronger.com. And finally, Nico mentioned it, Stay in the Fight. This is our mental health charity created in loving memory of our brother, our family, Anthony Miralda. Our organization is dedicated to supporting individuals facing mental health challenges by providing access to resources, building community, and promoting healing through connection, movement, and mentorship. We provide free counseling and therapy for those who do not have the resources to afford it. Our mission is simple and powerful: to remind people that they are not alone and to keep fighting every single day. Learn more or support the cause at stayinthefight.am. Nico Diaz, my man, love you. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. We'll definitely have you on again after you start your career, and you'll definitely learn some lessons along the journey, but you're a natural at this, man. I really, really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Uncle Dennis. I love you too, and I can't wait to be back on. And this is great what you're doing, and you definitely motivating me every single day. So
thank you, man. So we appreciate all of you for listening, for supporting, and for being a part of this movement. go one step further than you thought you could go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.